Well, Sam, welcome back. It's again nice to have a pro back. We had Marissa on the show yesterday, so
She's
last week.
she's more of a pro than me.
No, well, I don't. We're getting this cadre of people who kind of know how to go through the comments, pay attention to me.
Yeah,
Make sure I'm not saying something stupid. I mean, so
getting more comfortable.
Yeah, and you're pretty comfortable now.
Yeah.
So
because I was shaking before.
Yeah, right.
My hands under the table. I was like,
But now you're pretty loose. Show up about 2 minutes before, like the traditional Greek man. So one of the things, by the way, and Sam and I were talking about it just before the show, that a lot of people may not know, the Greek Archdiocese has, if I can say, almost bought out or taken over Father Seraphim's Ages program. And now there's going to be a link. I think Demos is putting that link up.
And I think he's going to put it in the description after the live stream as well.
And that is the digital chant stand. It has all the services. So if you're tuning into our show for Orthros or you're tuning in for a liturgy, whatever that Sam or Lori or any of them are going to be chanting is going to be read off of that Ages service. That includes our Wednesday service, the Pre-Sanctified, and to some extent includes tomorrow's service, the Akathist.
Yeah, and for there's services and chants that you can read for every single day of the week. So for those churches or the monasteries that do liturgy every single day, right? Vespers, it has it all in there. And the great thing is when I started chanting, Father, as you know, you told me, okay, hang back, learn from Johnny and Lori. Right? And I was following on my phone on the digital chant stand, and I was reading all of the words, and that's what struck me the most as most profound of the words that are sung in the hymns and through the services. Now there's the language that we have cannot compare it to the heavens, right? But it really pierces into your soul. Because it makes you think about different things, right?
Yeah. When you actually read the theology of our church, it's in our hymns. So that's kind of how we have Bible study, right? Through those hymns. So it's important to follow along, and you can get it in English, you can get it in Greek English, right? So whatever way that you
Greek
want.
And English.
Or Greek. What did I say?
Greek English.
Greek English. You can get it in Greek English.
AKA the Greek salad.
Yeah, because when you're just listening to the chanters or to the choir,
right?
Sometimes you can get lost. Sometimes you can get lost in the words, especially when they transition over to Greek and then back to English. You kind of like lose yourself. Like, oh, it sounds melodic and it sounds beautiful and everything like that. But sometimes the meaning of the words don't really hit you. And that's where reading it as it's being sung. Yes. You can put the one and one together, and that's how you can get a fuller understanding of what's being done.
And also that's helpful because I know that the questions come up a lot about, why are we still doing the service in Greek? Why is there still components of Greek? Right. Shouldn't it be all English? And again, part of that is our heritage. I mean, the hymns were written originally in Greek, and if you can read along, at least you know what they're saying. I mean, we're not doing the whole service in Greek or anything like that. But I think that to lose that, would be to lose a piece of the Orthodox tradition that we have, right?
Yes.
So, Oh, by the way, are we still in April, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I got to do Saint of the Day again.
April 7th.
April 7th. All right. I'm going to give a hint. Our prize of the day. Sorry.
Yeah.
Getting up, walking around. Our prize of the day is this really, really cool book. One of our listeners, the lady, I think Maria, that won the cookbook. Yes. So I sent this along with her. This is a really, really nice Orthodox prayer book. Number one, because it has the entire liturgy in it, but equally so, what it has is it has a whole section on thought starters for confession. So like people will come and they'll say, well, Father, I don't know what to confess. and is it more than the 10 Commandments? And this does an excellent job of pointing out what some of those other things are by 10 Commandments. So what they do is they break it out. So thou shalt not kill. But what does that mean on a deeper level? And they'll take you through it. And so it's a great thought starter for that. The other thing it has prayers for certain events, prayers for illness, prayers at the table, prayers for the apoditmo, the before we go to bed, the rising prayer. So it's a really, really nice handbook. I'm talking like an engineer now.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a really, really great book. So that's the prize for today, 7 April.
And it's all English.
And it's all, yes, and it's all right. It's all English. Okay. Let's see here. So that they can't see. Let's see. So, I don't know. So, should we go with him, or should we go with him? What do you think?
I feel like he is more known.
All right. Okay, so we're going to give you a series of hints throughout this, and then you have to guess.
If I say the answer, do I win?
No, you don't win.
Okay.
Get it, Lee. Looking over my shoulder, he wants a free book now. All right. Born in 776 of noble family in Asia Minor, he set sail for the island of Mytilene. I'm going to leave it at that.
All right, and the person that guesses first gets the book.
Gets the book.
Right.
Correctly, not like I did last week where I jumped the gun and then I said, yes, you won, and then had to take it back because it wasn't right.
So Mytilene, that's a Greek island. So
that's right.
People can just be rifling off, all the Greek popular names, and they may hit the target.
Well, no. According to Nicholas the Philippus, he already has that book and says you can buy it on Ancient Faith. So if Nicholas answers it correctly, now I'm going to be skeptical.
Wait a minute. He bought this, or he can buy this?
I assume it was the red one, but I wouldn't be surprised if the other series is on Ancient Faith either.
No, it could be. I'm just so excited to have this whole collection of all the saints. So that was, again, a wonderful gift donated. So we better get started, right? Okay.
Yes. Trench says hello, but no question yet. That's a bit further down. The first question comes from Nathan, and it's a good one. Is it anathema to deny the sinlessness of Saint Mary?
Because there's a correction. So because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. But people send me videos where clergy anathematize people who do. Anathemas people who doesn't.
So is it anathema to deny the sinlessness of Saint Mary? Because people send me videos where clergy anathemas people who do it. Well, let's answer the main question.
Well, first let's describe what anathema is.
Okay, so anathema then is that which is against the thema. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So if there is a particular doctrine of the church or dogma of the church, and you say something that is antithetical to that is against the theme of what that is, like they deny the resurrection of Christ, right? We say that Christ was resurrected from the dead, and you say something that is anathema to that, you are denying the reality of that statement. Okay?
Okay.
And to be declared anathema is to say you are saying something that is against the theme of what you've, okay? Well, if we start with St. Paul says that Jesus Christ is like us in every way except...
I don't know the verse, but...
What's the only thing that Christ did not do?
He didn't sin.
There you go. So he's like us in every way except sin. All of us have fallen short, right? Mm-hmm. So in the Garden of Eden, right? At the fall, right? Now we don't believe in original sin, but we do believe in the original sin, which was the sin of pride committed by Eve. And all of us now, right? And we say it in the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ our God, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yes.
Okay? So, if we take those statements now, everybody, or let's go back even further, the reason that Jesus Christ comes from and becomes man, fully man and fully God, what's the reason? He comes for our salvation, right? To rescue us from what? Our broken relationship with God, because we are in sin. So St. Paul tells us nobody sins. If we say that the Virgin Mary is sinless, right, then what we are saying is that she does not need Jesus Christ's salvation. She is outside of that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is antithetical to the Orthodox Church. Even St. John Chrysostom, in his homily on the Gospel of John, when he is commenting on the wedding of Cana, he makes the statement in there and says, when she turned to Jesus and said, they have no wine, St. John Chrysostom says that there you can see the hints of the sin of pride. Right? So this is St. John. This is one of the Holy Fathers of the Church. So to say that she is outside or she has not sinned says that she is not in need of the salvation of Jesus Christ, and all of us are admitted sinners through the Jesus prayer. So to be declared anathema, I wouldn't understand that. I mean, I know we chant it, we sing it, and right. tomorrow at the Kathistos we're going to say, right, she who is without sin, without stain. That's how
without
we say,
stain.
We said without
pure and spotless.
Pure and spotless, right? Because amolinto is without pollution, right? Moling, right? So we say without stain, but it does say in there about her being sinless. So that becomes a difficult point. It's not like her virginity, right? We clearly have that as a dogmatic statement.
Is it a translation issue? Because when I read the hymns in Greek, it doesn't say anything like choris amartia, which is without sin.
Without sin, right. But there are holy fathers that will speak about her in that sinless sense. So again, not all the holy fathers necessarily agree.
Okay.
So in that sense, to be outright declared anathema for that, to some extent, denies the dogmatic statements of who Jesus Christ is and what he's done for us and our salvation.
Thank you. The next question is from former Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte.
Emperor. I love that. Whoa, how do you get the pose now?
He was exiled.
He was exiled. Oh, yeah, okay.
What is the Orthodox view of capital punishment?
Okay, that's pretty simple. We don't believe in capital punishment. Only God has the right to take a life. Okay? Even you yourself don't have the right to take your own life. This is why suicide becomes a sin, right? So nobody has a right to take life, and one of the 10 Commandments clearly is, thou shalt not kill. Okay, so now how are we going to reconcile that when we live in a country where we still have capital punishment, right? So what we can say as Orthodox is that we live in the country that we live in. But what we can say is that if we were ever in that situation and somebody was being sent to be punished by being killed, we would have to push back against that. As difficult as that would be, we'd have to push back against that and ask then for clemency to life in prison. We believe that they need to serve time for the crime that they've committed, but we would have to ask the prosecution that they push for life sentence, but not for capital punishment.
His second question is, does the Orthodox Church believe that the existence of God can be proven? For example, would the Church reject the logical arguments of Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas, Bele, Godal, and many more?
So, and I think that Dr. Jeannie Constantinou actually put this best in her book that we just had her here, Thinking with the Orthodox Phronima. Mm-hmm. So the question from an Orthodox position does not make sense because our theology begins with the existence of God.
Yes.
So, and so when when Dr. Jeannie Constantinou says that we are not a reason-based faith, she doesn't mean that we're idiots and we don't read and we don't use our intellect and our brain. What she means is that we, as Orthodox, understand that a Western phronema, a Western mindset, is a scholastic mindset that attempts to make proofs. An Eastern mindset is one that starts from the basic assumption that God exists, and then theology develops from that. So the question for us doesn't make sense.
And that's, to build upon that, she also mentioned that Christ said, I do not think as you do.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, exactly right.
Trench asks, when did Catholicism stop being considered heretical? Was it when a patriarch was a Mason? And if so, shouldn't that be null and void due to being a Mason is not allowed?
Well, hey, now you've got a pretty Greeky family, okay? All right.
Yeah.
And I've got a pretty Greeky family. Every single one of my male members, my uncle, my grandfathers, uncles, grandfathers, my father, they were all Masons. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, if you were Orthodox, you were a guy, you were a Mason. So there were more Masons, I think, in the Orthodox Church than there were in the Catholic Church, which is why they rebelled and came up with the Knights of Columbus, because the Knights of Columbus was the Christian version of the Masons. Okay, so again, I don't know in your family if they were Masons or not. But in mine,
growing up, in the village of Flamborough, the village flag is of a pickaxe and a rock hammer.
Ah,
because
okay.
they were all Masons.
They were all Masons, and if you go to any of the old style Orthodox churches, what's right in the top of the iconostasi? The all-seeing eye, right?
Yeah.
Which is the symbol of the Masons, right? That eye, and that they'll tell you stuff like, well, that's the all-seeing eye of God, and then that was a Masonic symbol that was right square dead center. So if we're gonna throw dirt on the Catholics, we better be prepared to get some of that dirt flung back on us, right? So he is correct that you cannot be a Mason and an Orthodox Christian. He is correct in that. But we've broken that rule so many times. There were priests that were Masons, right? And that was one of the questions the seminary they asked. Oh, are you a Mason? And I'm like, okay. So, I think we understand it a little bit better right now.
I actually did not know this. I thought you were joking around a little bit, but wow, now I have to pay attention next time I go to Greece and go to the churches and see if there's like an all-seeing eye or something like that. Right,
because that's the key symbol of the Masons is the all-seeing eye, right? Plus the compass and square, and like you said, the right. So
interesting. Okay.
But no, today I don't know of any priests, Orthodox priests who are Masons. But I'll tell you what, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, man, but it was protection. Because they were torturing us. I mean, it was, the Klansmen and stuff like that. If you were black or you were ethnic, man, you were in trouble. So the Masons was the brotherhood, that protected one another. So it was important from that standpoint. There's no guesses on the saint, huh?
Not yet, but we'll give our second clue.
Okay.
At 7:30.
7:30.
All right. The next question is from George Lambrinos. He asked, "Why is so wrong to want to be a monk, to want to be as a monk and live a monastic life if you choose to do so, even in the cities? We are all from the same world."
So there's no reason to not be a monk. Okay, that absolutely. I mean, there's no issue with that. The problem that the Orthodox Church has is that we view the monastic calling as just that. We view it as a calling that God is, or you recognize that God is calling you to this. What happens a lot of times in a monastic life, if people are drawn to that for some kind of false spirituality, or they're drawn to it as an escape from the world, or they're drawn to it because they're not successful in the world. They can't make it, so they're going to hide in the monastery. Those are not reasons to be a monk. But if you truly have a calling to be a monk, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, in Orthodoxy, we're not like Catholics where we have different grades of monastics, meaning that we have monastics that are social, that have social justice, and they have their offices in the city or the villages, and then they also have others that are often monastic sites. The only thing right now that the Orthodox Church has is that a monastic must separate himself physically and mentally from the world. And the way you do that is you got to leave the city. You can't be in the world, okay? So there's nothing to be said badly about being a monk, but right now Orthodoxy sees that a monastic life must be separated physically and spiritually and mentally from the world.
We have a guess.
You have a guess.
Yes, and I believe they're correct. Ken ATL says, Saint of the Day, St. George the Standard Bearer, also, which we also know as St. George the Confessor.
St. George the Confessor. All right.
Is
first commemorated as the
confessor. I feel like he is at an early age.
Okay. Preceded virtues.
Bishop of Mytilene.
Bishop of Mytilene, right?
That's St. George.
That is.
I remember hearing that he was a confessor at an early age, and didn't he die at a young age as well?
The bishop at 28. After part
821.
So 821, 776.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that is yes. All right.
So Ken, please email us. Our email is in the description, but I'll say it again: agocny@gmail.com, and we'll make arrangements to send you the book. We do have some follow-ups to the questions that were just asked about Freemasonry and so forth. Greek 70 says, you do know Freemasonry is Satanism, and that Freemasonry is a denial of the faith.
Well, that is not my understanding of Freemasonry. Freemasonry, in fact, it is a requirement within. Now, again, unless you're in Freemasonry, you're not allowed to know. Yeah. Even my dad wouldn't tell me until he said, "I'd like to make you a demolay," which is kind of the first start. But he never pursued it, so he never really told me anything about it. But the things that he did tell me, and he showed me the Masonic Bible, is a requirement to believe in God. But it is not a requirement to believe in the Holy Trinity. It is a requirement to believe in the one God. So I have no understanding whatsoever that Masonry is satanic. It is not Christian because of the Trinitarian idea. You can be a Christian and be a Mason because you believe in the one God. But I have not in any way known Masonry to be satanic or to be atheistic or anything like that. In fact, it's a requirement to believe in the one God.
And just to return quickly to Napoleon Bonaparte's question about, in the existence of God, for example, arguments by Aristotle.
Right.
Okay, there's some comments that follow that. Trench says, that does not make sense since the ancient Greeks stated that there is a God, which they had a statue of the unknown God. And then Napoleon follows with, Aristotle proposed it is irrational to presuppose that there is a creator. Just because we believe in a different God doesn't mean his arguments were illogical. And Trench's question is, what different God? Meaning, is there a difference between the God that Aristotle proposed and the one true God?
Well, that was the whole thing with St. Paul at Mars Hill in Athens when he went up and he saw, and he says, I see that you believe, because here is a statue to the unknown God. Okay, but what you, the Athenians, engage in is you engage in now all of these philosophical discussions. Let me tell you the name of your God. So they were constantly in this philosophical debate about who is God and what is God, and so there was never any concrete answer, and hence you have this statue of the unknown God. because we know that there's Zeus, we know that there's Titan, we know that there's Apollo, but there is a higher God, we believe. And who is that God? And St. Paul said, I will tell you the name of your God. And St. Paul later tells the Athenians, do not involve yourself in these philosophical spider webs that you engage in, because this can become demonic, because you are trying to reason into who God is.
And of course, when you say, when we know there's Zeus, Aphrodite, Apollo, etc., that was the ancient Greek.
The ancient Greece, from the ancient Greece, yes.
Just in case somebody says, wait, right. Greek Orthodox believes in Zeus?
And that's why I love in the salutation services that when we say, the rejoice, okay. One of those is, you the despoiler of the Athenian webs. I love that line, because right there it's saying that our God, is a simple God, not simple like simple-minded, but simple in terms of that he is unmixed, unconfounded, incomprehensible. Okay, we've made those statements. So we as Orthodox speak apophatically about God. We talk about what we do not know about him.
Harper asks, God's name isn't God. At least that's not what I understand. So how does commandment number 3 work in light of this?
Command number 3, yoga. Oops, see, I slipped up on myself already. Okay, thou shalt have
God's name in vain.
Oh, take God's name in vain.
Yeah, which you just. Yeah, that's actually.
I just goofed up. Okay, see, I am a sinful person. So we talk about. Well, let me understand the question, I think, a little bit better, because we talk through the idea of don't take God's name in vain, but he's saying God, his name is not God, right?
I think the question is, okay, God's name isn't God, at least that's not what I understand. That'd be Yahweh, right?
Well,
when the commandments were written.
Well, that wasn't his name. His name was I am.
But I mean,
he didn't give his name as Yahweh. He gave his name as I am. Okay, we gave him the name of Yahweh.
Okay, well, I mean, that was after the golden cow incident. That was a council, and that's when they decided the Yahweh portion.
Well, the Yahweh's okay. But then there's Elohim. So if we look, there are two distinct authors of the Torah, of the beginning Torah. There is the Elohimites, who called him Elohim, and then there was the Yahwehites, who then had Yahweh. So it depends upon which.
That's the heart of the question here, right? If God's name isn't God, it isn't Yahweh, it isn't anything that we understand, how can we take God's name in vain if we're not using God's name? That's the question.
Oh yeah. So okay. So now you're splitting hairs with me here.
No, that's the question.
I agree. But the Orthodox would understand it as splitting hairs, because we understand God as referring to the one true God. Okay, that's the way we understand that word. Okay, so if I ask Sam, what's your job? Okay, and he tells me that I am a communications engineer, I say, no, that's not what's on your degree. What's on your degree is mechanical engineer. You are not a communications engineer. And he says, well, I work in communications. We refer to ourselves as a communications engineer. And I say, no, you're a mechanical, because we're splitting hairs here. Okay, we understand today that when we say God, we mean Yahweh. We mean Elohim. Mm-hmm. So to say, well, I'm saying, oh God, but I didn't say, oh Yahweh. Again, we're playing. We're
playing with fire.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nicholas de Philippis asks, my understanding of Orthodox prayer is that I'm not supposed to pray for myself or tell God my troubles. I'm only supposed to ask for mercy. Is that right?
No. We ask for. I mean, Sam,
didn't St. Paul say ask for any?
Even Jesus himself said, whatever you ask in my name, I will grant it, right? I mean, as long as it's for the glorification of God, right? And that, Sam, I don't know about you, but I have prayed for myself a number of times. Help me out of this situation. Help me. Okay, yes, we can absolutely pray for ourselves. Where it gets dangerous is when I say, please, God, Demos has that wonderful 4 Series Beamer. Let me get a 5 Series Beamer. Okay, that's praying for me that is incorrect.
Which should be followed by, my prayer. Oh God, could I have one to begin with?
So no, absolutely, you can pray for yourself, but again, those prayers should be respectful of God, meaning that we're praying for our own health. We're praying. I mean, you can even pray that help me on this test so that I can pass, so that I can further my degree, so I can use my talents. There's nothing wrong with that, But when we start praying for material things, that's when, as you say,
or so that my parents don't get mad at me.
Yeah, right, because they're going to
get... His follow-up question is, it seems like God wants me to suffer and be miserable because somehow that's good for me. Is that also the church's teaching?
No, the church's teaching is you will suffer. We don't. God doesn't need to interfere in that in any way whatsoever. Jesus Christ has promised us that we will suffer in this life. As the world hates me, so it will hate you if you follow me. So a Christian life is a guaranteed life of suffering. Now, each person will suffer differently, right? Some will suffer unto martyrdom, and some will have, a much more easier life, but everybody has suffering. So God doesn't want you to suffer, but in a fallen world, suffering exists. And God is your only peace out of that. God doesn't necessarily remove the suffering, but as Jesus Christ says, I give you a peace that you cannot get from the world. And that's God's promise to us.
As we go through to the next questions, I just want to do a shout out. These aren't questions, but people that were in the chat, David Neck and Millardo 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello. Migs 2682 asks for another follow-up about keeping Sabbath holy. I asked a few weeks ago, the Jews believe that aside from your job, like mowing the lawn and cooking and other things are considered as work.
Mm-hmm.
What does Orthodox Church consider as work?
If I could just remember the sorry, hold up, I'm just I just had it.
And while you're looking it up, I mean, that's true. I mean, some of the more strict interpretations of Judaism, the Orthodox Jews, even going into an elevator and pressing a button is considered work.
Right.
So I guess the question is, do we take it to that extreme?
We do not take it to that extreme. And again, my apologies that I am looking for a particular verse. I'm sorry to be taking the time out here. Okay, chapter 6, after the miracle of the loaves.
Which book?
Book of John. Book of John, chapter 5.
Chapter 5 or 6.
Oh, sorry, chapter 6.
Okay.
Chapter 6. And verse 28. And then they asked him, what must we do to do the works that God requires? Jesus answers, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. That is the definition of work. Is if you believe in me, then you will do those things that are Christ-like. Love your neighbor, offer up charity, right?
So that means in relation to the question, for the church, like we say, Sunday is a day of rest,
right,
for us. So, but we do not rest from doing the works of God.
Right. And that day of rest, that Sabbath for us, which is the new Sabbath, which is Sunday, is the day that we set aside to not do work, but to do the work of him who sent me, which is to worship him. So
how do we reconcile the fact that in today's society, people are expected to work on Sundays? In many jobs, you know, unless you work for Chick-fil-A, you're gonna have to work on Sundays.
Okay, but you know, now that is the path that America has chosen. I mean, you know, because growing up, you know, certainly growing up for me, you all might have seen that, but you know, I grew up in the time of blue laws where places could not be open on Sunday. So we had that in America. Okay, the secularization of America has allowed now this to creep in. And we as Christians, hey, let's face facts. We as Christians have become lazy, and we have allowed this to happen. You have to take a stand, you know, and I see this, same thing I got to say with sports and work. If they ask you to work or they ask you to play sports, you have the right to say no. Okay, now, maybe a single voice can't do it, but a chorus of voices can come together and say, no, my son will not play on Sunday until 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. We can do that as a team. But if we as Christians just kind of say, well, you know, this is what they demand and there's nothing I can do, okay, then you have created your own yoke and you've created your own consequences. Then live with it. I mean, you've made your decision. So, you know, it's unfair to blame the church now for the stand that she takes. And then all of a sudden you say, now my kids don't come to church anymore because we have these sports they have to do or they have to work on Sunday. Okay, you've made that choice. So have the guts to say, I've made my choice, right?
But you know, when that's and the only reason I'm harping on this is because we just did the 10 Commandments video, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we broke down each one. And when that, hold the Sabbath sacred is a literal commandment, and we just throw it out the window.
And so I'm agreeing with you. And look, I know that there are certain positions, firemen, policemen, hospital workers, you know, who they're on duty. It is what it is. They have to do that. I'm not talking about those type of people. I'm talking about where you have a solid choice that you can make a difference, and you choose the path that is the easy path. Okay? So this is not to take away from a hospital worker who has to do a Sunday shift because he or she, that's their requirement. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about places where you can make a stand as a Christian and you don't make a stand, then you have to accept the consequences of what you've done and understand that is not Christian behavior.
I think even in Judaism, there are exceptions if you're a doctor or something like that.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. They're right. And there is what we would call then economia.
Right.
There's compassion. There's always compassion. But there's not just a do whatever you want, right? The church has to stand for what she stands for. And then the church understands that you, of your own free will make your decision. Nope.
Was it, like, for example, when my wife, she was working in the hospitals, mm-hmm. there would be Sundays where she would have to work.
Sure.
Now, would that, where she could feel that, okay, I'm not attending liturgy, but am I doing the second part of Jesus' great commandment where to love your neighbor? And isn't that as a nurse or a fireman or...
She's right. She's not playing video games, right?
Right.
She's not making weapons. She's helping her fellow man.
She's doing the work of God.
She's doing the work. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. She's doing the work of God. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
I really wanted to do a quick shout out to Diane L, who sent us a super chat. Diane, thank you as always, and it's good to see you tonight.
Yeah. All right, Diane, thank you very much. Obviously, you see that we're...
Well, you should probably explain that to anybody that doesn't know. That was a gift.
No, that's for her. Oh. That's for her.
Oh. Trench's question is, Christ talks about one can do something if they have strong faith, but no one has strong faith to tempt themselves. So is Christ speaking indirectly to not do something since no truly strong? I think it means since no one is truly strong in the faith.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could agree with that. I believe that the monastics are very strong in their faith, and in fact, one of the purposes is that they help us in our unbelief, because when you go to the monastery and you see that level of commitment and you see in their face that light of Christ, they are strong in their faith, and that gives me faith. I mean, right. I see that. This is why we cannot lose the monastic piece of who we are as Orthodox,
and
because that is the strength of faith.
And also for the martyrs who were facing death and facing torture, and they still did not.
Don't you think that's strength?
Yeah,
man, to be mauled by a lion. But those of us who are not strong in our faith need those people as mentors so that we can be strong in our faith. And the saints and the martyrs help us with that, but the monastics are the living example of that total commitment and belief in our Lord and Savior and God the Father and the Holy Spirit.
Migs 2682 asks, I disagree with new religious music. Our modernized hymns are hymns in the new mass. I feel like the Orthodox Church is big on keeping tradition. How important do you think keeping traditional music in divine liturgy is?
I am a traditionalist in that sense. Because the hymns are the essence of our theology. We teach theology through hymns. We cannot change those words because those words were established for us by the Holy Fathers, and the truth that was there then is the same truth now. Okay? The only place where I am non-traditional is I believe that those hymns have to be opened for our people here in English so that they can. So what I'm against is somebody listening to a hymn and saying, oh, that is so spiritual. I don't know what they're saying, but it's very spiritual.
Right.
That's akin to, a Buddhist chant, right? Okay. Then you're not spiritually edifying, you're just being spiritual. So it is important for us to hear those words. But chant is the manner in which that can be revealed to us. Because of the way it's done, we get to hear it, and we can begin to, like you said, hear it in our souls, hear it in our hearts.
A quick clarification to an earlier question, Trench's question. He says, monastics are strong, but Christ was talking about the average person to not tempt faith.
Oh, well, and I would, yes, for the average person, I would absolutely say, that you avoid purposeful temptation. Like, you know what? I'm going to walk into a porn shop because I have the strength of faith and I'm not going to be affected by any of that. And just to show you that, I'm going to walk through that porn shop, right? Okay, that's putting yourself in. Or, you know what? I'm strong in my faith, so I'll smoke a doobie and I know that I can stop because I'm strong in my faith. So he is right about that, is that when you purposely are trying to make yourself look like the Pharisee, right, stands up and says, I'm not like you, watch what I can do, then you're right. That's Satan's trap right there. So he is correct about that.
I think my faith has been shattered by the use of the word doobie.
Doobie? Do you think there's anybody alive who still even knows what that term means? I mean, I'm old school.
Maybe Scooby.
Scooby.
But I don't even think that the monks would tempt themselves like that.
No, absolutely, no, absolutely not. And in fact, what are they called? The ones who are undergoing the trial, the ones who are learning about the apprentices. Okay, sometimes what will happen to them is they will look to see if the other monks are falling into sin so that they can say, look, I'm not falling into sin. And it is the abbot the senior elders who come and tell him, you are committing the greater sin. So they do have to learn that behavior. They do have to learn not to tempt themselves.
So what's your take on, and my memory might be false here, or this might be apocryphal, but what's your take on Gandhi, who supposedly used to sleep every night next to a nude woman as a test of faith?
We would disagree with that. We would, why are you unnecessarily, placing temptation, I mean, because what are you proving to yourself? I mean, so
I didn't know
we
that.
would, so I don't know. So we would not, that would not be a practice that I recommend.
Nathan asks, should I know about all of these saints to become Orthodox?
No. I've got, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 volumes up there with 365 days, and each day has about 6, 7, maybe 10 saints. I have to get the book out because I don't know the saints.
Right.
So, no. But it is important, and it's nice to open up either the archdiocese website or a book like this and read about that saint for the day. That would be nice, but there's no reason to
I think that's
memorize.
great for further edification. Like if you have an issue or a problem in your life that you just don't understand why it's happening or how to get through it, and let's say many people, they turn to the Bible to look for instruction,
right?
And they can't find the answer that they're looking for because they're just possibly not enlightened enough to know the deeper meanings.
Right.
They can, do an internet search on, I'm suffering like this. What saint relates to this kind of suffering?
Right.
And the story of that saint can, provide some clarification.
Strengthen their faith.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
At the very least, start with the saint that you're named after, if you're a Greek Orthodox.
Mm-hmm. And remember that there are quite a few. I'm a little biased on this because Presbyteria's Celtic heritage there, but there are many, 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 many Orthodox Celtic saints, right? Orthodox Celt,
Right.
So so just because you have the name Patrick doesn't mean that you don't have a saint.
Nicholas Yerosterios asks, according to the tax canon law, if you miss church 3 weeks in a row, you're out. But
right.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, church was broadcast online. Do those rules still apply?
So the rule applied through akrivia, but the conditions mandated that the archbishop issue economia. All right. So even though you missed church, you made every attempt that you could to worship God. So you tuned into the live stream. So yes, absolutely. But now that church is opening back up again, okay, it's time to come back to your community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't rest on the COVID laurels forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, now you have to come back and be in communion physically with Christ, because you can't receive communion from home. I have not done any drive-by communions.
And at the very least, after you go to church and you come back home and you want some extra goodness, watch our live stream
And watch
the church service.
Of the church. That's right. Extra goodness.
Chris Pumbon.
That's a commercial, man. And now for extra goodness.
But wait, there's more. Chris Pumbon asks, how do I become Orthodox in a country with very few Orthodox churches? Can I do it online?
Well, unfortunately, because of the sacrament of Holy Communion is so vital to us, in fact, vital unto salvation, you will eventually have to hook yourself up with an Orthodox church. You physically have to be present. Now, and I think we had a couple of weeks ago, we had this same kind of question that I think it was a she that lived in an area that was not predominantly Orthodox.
Right.
So when you're in that situation, there is an Orthodox church somewhere. So maybe what has to happen with you is that you make that pilgrimage once a month. If it's really far, once every quarter. But and the rest of the time you have to watch online. But you have to make the pilgrimage on some kind of cyclic basis so that you can receive the sacrament of Holy Communion. The Orthodox Church strongly believes that receipt of Holy Communion is essential for salvation. So, they don't put a number on it like every week you got to have it, every month you got to have it, okay? But you can find an Orthodox church and you can make that pilgrimage once a month, once every quarter, whatever that is.
Saint Mary of Egypt comes to mind.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because she was in the desert, right?
Yes.
And then she received communion from Zosimos. Was it who came to offer her communion? She wanted to.
His name. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Trench asks, what steps is the church taking to prepare for mass starvation, food shortages, price hikes, etc., as many experts and officials say? Many will look for the church for help. As they should.
That is the purpose of the church. It is to provide certainly a place for communal worship, but equally so, it is there for the second great commandment of Christ, which is help your fellow man. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or more correctly, as I have done unto you, meaning that I have sacrificed unto you. So it is the church's responsibility, without a doubt, to be able to step up and to provide, those things that the community needs. Now, one of the great things that I like about Rochester is that on a local level, I have a listing of all of the churches in our area which offer food services, health services, laundry, hot meals 3 times a day, clothing, Rochester does that very well. When I was in Detroit, we had wonderful programs there. In addition to what they did, what I just described, they also had bootstrap programs where you came in as a family, you lived together in an apartment, and then they taught one how to cook. They gave the other one a profession, and then they got them into the next house and the next house. So I have seen, at least in the 2 communities that I've been involved in, a great degree of outreach. And as situations become more demanding, right. Like the Ukraine, it's the church's responsibility to step up and be in the line of fire.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add, if you're at a church and you feel that not enough is being done, or nobody is preparing, because we are going to be having some pretty bad food shortages especially coming this harvest season. Step up. You're a part of that community. Get involved. Make suggestions. There'll be programs in the church, but I'm sure there'll be people there that are like-minded.
And in fact, you bring up a really great point. A total cop-out is to say, Father, what are we doing? Father, you should start something. Father, what should we do? That's a total cop-out. What the community should be doing, and that's another reason I love this community, is the community people come to me and they say, Father, this is what I want to do. And I say, what do you need? And they say, I need X. And I find it and I get them and they do it. And then I support it. I am not the one who is supposed to start everything. What I'm supposed to do is be able to provide you the resources so that you can do these things that you need to do. And so that's I just wanted to bring that point up and to encourage what Demos said. It's your responsibility to stand up and say, Father, this is what I want to do. And then I say, that's a great idea, and here's the resources that you need. You tell me what you need, and we're going to get it for you.
Listen, it's already close to an hour. We still have a great deal of questions, so we're just going to
it's all up to you.
Keep that in mind.
Okay, all right. I'm good, but I don't want to,
Miggs asks, you have said many times that the church doesn't believe in classifying sins. Why is murder as equal to a lie or swearing?
Because you are destroying the image, or you are desecrating and damaging the image and likeness of God. So if I and we see this, right? We see this all the time on on Facebook. It's become a serious problem now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of kids get together and they start gossiping about a kid, and the kid's not prepared to take it, and that child commits suicide. Isn't that the violation of the commandment, thou shalt not kill? But then you're gonna hide, as a coward, you're gonna hide behind the fact that, well, I just wrote something on Facebook. You know what you did. Okay, you are responsible. So how are we going to granulate that sin and say, well, okay, you shouldn't have gossiped, so it's a little sin, but she committed suicide, but she's responsible for that because she did it.
And
No.
That's not an extreme example, because this happens every day.
Yeah,
Right,
it happens it happens quite a bit. So the Orthodox Church sees that small sins become stepping stones to much larger and more damaging sins.
Just because one is easier to commit doesn't mean it's less bad.
Right. I don't want to call them gateway sins, but
Yeah, but I mean, it's yeah.
Miggs asks, the Bible talks about wars and murder. Obviously, there are wars now. How does the Orthodox Church reconcile war as not breaking the commandment of killing? We answered this last time I was here.
Yeah.
In that God spoke directly to Joshua, I think via dream, but God spoke directly to Saul, but is God speaking directly?
Oh, wait a minute. Yes. So that God's voice has become much more of a whisper than it is the direct voice as Adam and Eve heard it.
Right.
But I thought she talking about
how do we contend with murdering during?
Oh, reconcile war is not breaking the commandment.
Reconcile wars. And I was thinking about
even God in the Old Testament told the Israelites to go to war, and immediately after the 10 Commandments were written and they did the golden cow thing, what did they do? They melted down the golden cow and fed it to the people who did it.
That's
literally after thou shalt not kill.
People are people. Right? But Jesus said, these things will happen: war, famine, pestilence. These things will happen. But not to see these as a sign, okay? But because these things will happen in a fallen world, so it is part of it is part of what man has done to man, or man continues to do to man. Right now, because this is not the situation anymore. God is not calling us to war. Okay, so the wars that we see now, those are not God calling us to war. Okay, this is man's injustice to man.
Nicholas Yerosterios asks, if you serve on a jury on a K-star results in the death penalty, is that a sin for you? And do you have to be caught a charge for forgiveness?
So
that's a good question.
Well, and so I've served on a couple of juries myself. It never got to that point that it was a death penalty. But and again, I may be getting this wrong, and Demos, maybe you can, you're a little more knowledgeable in this, but as a juror, not only am I deciding on innocence or guilt, but I thought as a juror, I can also make then what I feel is the recommendation for the punishment.
I'm not sure. I mean, I thought that the sentencing was left up to the judge specifically.
So if the sentencing is left up to the judge, you have done your due diligence. You have acted in a Christian manner. You have decided the guilt or innocence of this person. There's nothing wrong with that. If there is a way that now, because I thought I saw it.
Yeah, judges, not juries.
Okay, so then the judge has to make that determination.
In America.
In America, right. Okay. So not that I'm saying that exonerates you, but,
you're just determining guilt.
You're just determining guilt or innocence. I'm just seeing if there's a platform by which you can speak of your
religious constitution.
Speak up against the stand. and then ask for clemency because of your stand. That's what I'm not sure of in America here. But no, you are not making the decision for life or death. You are just making the decision about guilt or innocence.
Danis Yorgiu asks, what is the role of the dean of the parish?
The dean or the deacon?
Do we have a dean of any kind?
No, there is a dean of the cathedral. So normally when a church is a cathedral, they don't refer to him as the proistamenos. They refer to him usually as the dean of the cathedral. So that's the term we use for that. But that term is not used outside of a cathedral.
So let's answer both. If it's a dean of the cathedral, what is the role?
The dean, it's the same thing. He's the proistamenos. He is the first standing priest, because usually a cathedral is large enough to have multiple priests. So as the dean, just like a dean of the school, he is the first responsible for all of the other acolytes, priests, deacons, and whoever else works for him.
And the deacon, what's specific?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's exactly the same, essentially.
No, a deacon is not a dean.
No, but I mean, essentially the role is
the role is the same.
Yeah.
But they just, because of the cathedral, they've given it the name of dean, similar to like a.
Aaron 88205 asks,
Hello, Aaron.
What is Nicaea 2025 going to focus on discussing, and what will come out of it?
Oh, good question. I have not seen the agenda, so, but.
While he's looking that up, yes, I realized, Diane, that Gandhi wasn't a Christian, but in the terms of the question about temptation and faith, I just thought that was where Father was talking about walking through a porn store, and here's a very, very famous figure that actually did that as a temptation every night. So I thought it was an apt thing to bring up.
So this is the Holy and Great Council that we had back in, I think, 2010.
Yeah,
right?
There was some conspiracy.
And
not conspiracy.
But the Georgians didn't show up, and then Russia backed out, and right. Okay, so I am thinking that more than likely we're going to have some of the same topics, a discussion of how to deal with the Orthodox diaspora, clearer definitions on autocephaly for sure, the sacrament of marriage and its impediments was unresolved because it was a surprise in the council when the American bishops announced that they had been marrying Orthodox and non-Orthodox. Yeah. Okay, fasting and its observance today, and the decision that was reached was that we're not changing the fasting rules. All right. Relations, now I'm sure this will be on the table, relations of the Orthodox Church with the rest of the Christian world, absolutely, and the mission of the Orthodox Church in today's world, which brings about that question of, what is the Church's role, and so I think that more than likely those will be some of the topics that they'll have.
Do you think that there are gonna be an inclusion of topics such as how to deal with social media in today's age, or even what's really big right now is trans
non-binary,
transsexuals?
No, because let's be realistic. If you look at the questions,
an issue in America, but not the rest of the world.
Yeah.
No, it's spreading around the world.
It's spreading, but if they're talking about the sacrament of marriage and its impediments between a male and a female, and there's still issues on that. Yeah, they're not going to go. They're not going to get far down that road. And I don't really think that social media is on the radar, other than to say that there are dangers inherent in social media. But I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to really take on those issues, because we're a little further back than that.
Well, just everybody remember to subscribe.
Yes, that's right.
Nicholas asks, how do you become an Orthodox monk?
Well, one, as I mentioned earlier, it's the same for priesthood. If you are seeking it, then you are probably not appropriate. Okay? So, like, the bishop is always wary of somebody that says, I want to become a priest. They see it in his mannerisms. They see it in his humility. They see it in his actions.
I got a question, though.
Okay.
There are some, saints, I think, Ayo Paisio and I didn't see the movie about Nectario, so
okay,
I can't really. But anyways, there are some monks that said, I wanna go into the desert, or I wanna.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, what about?
Okay.
They were seeking it.
So they were seeking. So, second part. Okay, I'm just starting with that. Second part is, if you feel that calling, then what you need to do is you need to find then a monastery. Now, me personally, I would start with the parish priest. And I would say, because all Orthodox parish priests have some experience with monastics, right? So I would go to the parish priest and say, you know what, Father, really seems like I'm being called to this monastic life. I'm not sure what to do. More than likely what that priest will do is he'll accompany you to a local monastery. There's a ton of monasteries in America around, Orthodox monasteries. He'll accompany you there. He'll introduce you to the abbot. You'll sit down, you'll have a conversation, and then out of that may grow something where you'll say, you know what, I want to try, I feel I'm ready to try this out. Okay. And then from there, the abbot will take over. And then he'll say, okay, I want you to stay here for, 3 months. And then what I want you to do. And he'll observe you. And then 6 months. It's usually a 2-year period of diaconia that you have to serve. All right. And after that period, then the monastery will make a decision about whether or not you are appropriate. Obviously, you have to still want to go, right? But the monastery will make the decision about whether you'll be tonsured. But the best place to start with your parish priest. If you don't have a parish priest, find an Orthodox church, and then just ask, I'm interested in the monastic life, Father. How should I proceed?
Real quick, Joe Paddington, this is a reference to an earlier question, but I just have to shout it out. The pilot's prayer. Please, God, don't let me screw this up.
GRK.
I have prayed that prayer a number of times. Trust me, man. Ooh-wee.
GRK 70, yes, probably Greek 70s. Is it true that it is forbidden to depict the Father and the Holy Spirit in Orthodox icons?
Well, if you depict them in the Ancient of Days manner. So what I mean is God with old man, long beard, right? Depicting him in that Ancient of Days manner is a heretical icon. The only acceptable Trinitarian icon is the 3 strangers at the hospitality of Abraham.
Right.
And it shows them as, they almost look like angels, but it is a depiction of the Holy Trinity. That is the only acceptable non-heretical icon.
And it's the only time we actually depicted them in the Sunday school video, too.
Yes, that's right.
It's a light or something else.
And in fact, if you, when you're watching our video, okay, and Demos is filming me as I'm walking to the back of the church, look on the extreme right side, and you will see a mosaic of God the Father being depicted.
Which is obviously heretical, but this church was built.
Built. Yeah.
57. But real quick, you left out the second part. So the Holy Spirit technically is depicted in many icons as a dove. Is that
no? There's because that was his manifested form. It said the Spirit in the form of a dove, just like we can depict
but not
Jesus,
the Spirit.
But nobody has seen God the Father. And you can't depict the Holy Spirit as a person, but he has been manifested as a dove, so that can be depicted. Thank you.
Aaron 88205, where did we get the tradition of the red Easter eggs?
Father's looking at me and laughing just because we literally filmed that for upcoming Easter Sunday school video.
So now I got to give it away if somebody's watching. The kids.
Well, we give part of it away. The red Easter egg is not a secret.
No. So the red Easter egg is symbolic of the blood that Jesus Christ shed for our salvation, just as the egg represents now new life. And in Jesus Christ, through his resurrection, we have new life. So the egg was symbolic of new life and spring and all that, pagan symbology. And the red now is Christianity taking that and then adding those two aspects of Christ, his blood, which he suffered for us, and then also new birth or resurrected life. So in that egg, what we have is
the Easter story.
The Easter story. That was easy.
Nathan asks, would it be bad to play games, watch movies, read, etc. on the Sabbath?
It's a day of rest. If those are restful.
Well, and again, remember what we said. Rest doesn't mean just bumming around. Rest means stop from your labors and worship God. Improve your relationship with God. Okay. So, St. Paul does say, pray unceasingly. All right. But I would say that some portion of that day should be devoted to prayer. Mm-hmm. Okay. And even I've just, I've got to even work on that because I will get lazy in myself. I'll see a TV program. I'll start watching a TV program. Then I'll be reading a book or something like that. So what I try to do is I try to set aside a little bit of time where I can go into the reading, into our reading. Terry has a reading. And then go in there and read then, Life of the Saints, maybe a passage in the Bible, a commentary on a particular Bible. So I'll try to set aside that time. That time is worshiping God also.
Rhonda Wright asks, please help me understand the icons of the church.
That's it?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Simple question,
level, but why do we have icons? I mean, what do they stand for? A lot of the answer that Father would give you in detail, we just released 2 videos on the topics of icons, the controversies, the purposes of icons, and the different styles. It's under our Greek Orthodox 101 series right here on this YouTube channel. But broadly speaking, why do we have icons?
So icons serve several purposes. Number one, they serve an educational purpose, okay, because in the beginning, in the early church, I should say, because of the high illiteracy rate, stories were passed on through hymns, songs, and pictures, just as you would teach a small child. So the way that many lay people learned about the saints of the church and learned about the events of the church was depicted in iconography. And so in iconography, you will see then not just a single figure like a Renaissance painting, but you will see many events happening. Like if you look at, and I wish I had it here, if you look at the Assumption, right, you'll see the Assumption of her in the tomb, but then you'll also see Jesus Christ and her together, the Virgin Mary, ascended, that she has been assumed. So You'll see different points in time. So those stories were told through the icon. The second reason for the icons is that through the observance of the prototype is who's being depicted. So here, right, we would have the icon of St. Thomas, all right? And when we see St. Thomas, we don't think about the wood of the icon, but what we think about is who St. Thomas was, what he did for us, and we called him the prototype. So this is the icon, but the prototype now is what we try to emulate. And we think and contemplate about the life of the person being depicted. So that's the second reason why we also have icons.
I like to think of it as a window. So
as a window, yes.
You cannot see, God bless you if you do, but you cannot see Jesus directly in front of you as I see Father or St. Luke, who was the first painter of the painter of an icon.
Yes.
So thank you, Joe Pennington, for mentioning that. But but because we cannot see with our eyes, we need something to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So looking through a window, and that's the way I like to think about it.
It makes it very convenient when they're on windows.
Yeah.
But those would be as Demo said, from a broad concept. Okay, they were educational, but they also provided that window into the life of the saint for us then to contemplate.
Which I do have a story, but I'll talk to you about it after, about icons. Okay.
I think Nathan has a decent question here.
Oh, which one is it? Do I gotta scroll down?
No, I'll get it. So Nathan asks, would studying on Sunday be considered working, as in for a test or so forth?
As long as some time is set aside to worship God. No. The answer is no, it would not be. Now, my really quick, interesting story about that was when we first got to seminary. A bunch of us that got together, we were all older, okay, and it had been a long time since we had been to school and tests, and so we were not in the mode. So you're supposed to go to chapel 2 times a day, Orthros in the morning, Vespers at night. Okay, so that's every single day. So what was happening was we were getting so bogged down in the work that we weren't going to chapel. We were just skipping. I don't have the time to go to chapel. I got study too. I got study. We were taking 17 credit hours. I've studied. Blah, blah. Well, finally, what we realized was that we were losing out on a spiritual life, and our stress was coming from the fact that we were ignoring our spiritual life. So we said, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to study, and then when it comes time for Vespers, we're putting our books down, and we're going to chapel. And man, I'm telling you that within a week of doing that, we were now in a place where we would go to Vespers and we would be so relaxed because we were just in the moment and we were worshiping. And then we would come back totally refreshed, and our grades and the way that we were doing on the test was much, much better. So from personal experience, you need to set aside that time so that you can refresh and just be with God and then go back to what it is that you're doing.
We have a super chat from Tommy Williams. Does Orthodoxy have an anathema equivalent, such as does it believe in formal anathema?
Well, we have a lot of anathemas. I mean, anyone in part. I mean, like to deny his resurrection is anathema. Okay, to declare that salvation exists only within the Orthodox Church, anathema. Right, that the Holy Spirit blows where it will. So anything that is said that is anti-dogmatic becomes anathema.
Okay. I think that may have been in comparison to like the Catholic Church. Is there a difference to the way they view anathema or perform anathema?
No. Oh no. From that perspective, no. Anathema is anything that is heretical or in violation of a canon. Okay. So, for example, the canons will say, and if a bishop ordains, if a wandering bishop without a metropolis ordains, then let him be anathema, right? So that's not in the Gospels, right? Okay, it's not a dogma, but he's doing something that is against the canons of the church, and he can be declared anathema.
Rhonda Roy asks a very good question that I think it was brought up when Dr. Jeannie was here. Which of the 12 disciples started the Orthodox Church?
Well, do you want to try that one?
All?
I mean, exactly right. If this is a trick question to get me to say Peter, the answer is no. Because the first council of Jerusalem that is part of that is recorded in the book of Acts was clearly a debate between James, the brother of our Lord, Peter, Paul, and then several other disciples, and they all together decided what was appropriate. So no single apostle founded the church, and in fact, he spread them out to different nations. Peter went to Rome, Thomas went to India, St. Paul went through Greece. Okay, so each one of them had their own mission. So no, we would never say that an apostle started the church.
Right, and the Dr. Genie, what was a profound statement is the Pentecost only happened once, and it happened to the 12 disciples.
Yes,
right?
yes,
So,
yes. Great.
Yeah.
The word was given to all the apostles at the same time. Right. Good point.
Real quick, since we're starting to run down on time, I just wanted to real quick mention Kimberly Bolger's question. She's a new face here. The question is probably asked a lot, but I'm a newbie. She says, "Why do the priests wear all black?"
I mean, that is probably the simplest question of all, because it's slimming. Black is slimming.
That is true.
Right?
Yeah.
So
you can hide stains more.
So now again, a little bit more research, but my understanding was that black was not always the priest's color, but during the occupation, then under the Turkish occupation, then these robes and the color became what the uniform that we were allowed to wear. So black became associated with clergy.
Is it a possibility that it's one of the reasons is that it's a more subdued color? It's not ornate. You're not standing up there with like Joseph in his Technicolor Dreamcoat acting like you're above everybody else.
Yeah, but where that falls apart is the vestments themselves are ornate.
That's true, but that's when you're actually performing the service. When you're out in public, you're not wearing those.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So in that sense,
what I heard.
Yeah, so that there is a humility factor, right?
And we have been talking. We will talk a little bit more about the vestments in an upcoming video. So Father's gonna put on a fashion show.
Oh, okay.
Aaron 88205 has a good question. Speaking of martyrdom, if a Christian in today's day and age was faced with a situation where they had to choose denying Christ or to die, should that person choose death or deny and repent later?
Well, the early church, we have history about that very question from the early church. One of the very first dilemmas that the early church had to deal with was during the persecutions, many thousands of people renounced Christ and started worshiping the pagan gods. For that very reason, they didn't want to die, okay? When Constantine now legalizes Christianity, those thousands of people came flooding back to the church and said, "I want to join the church again." And so the church had to figure out, what are we going to do, And what the church decided was that they were allowed to re-enter into the church, but after a long period of penance. Okay? So the answer is not everybody has the strength of faith that they can deny Christ unto their life. Not everybody has that. And the church recognizes that. As we had in the military, the words are to the best of your ability. Okay? Now, if there will be a confession and a penance that has to come on the other side of that, all right? Because not everybody can accept that call to death. I mean,
And that's throughout history. Ottoman occupation, Soviets.
Soviets, right. Even the martyrdom in China, during the Boxer rebellions, certainly there has to be, you have to fight as much of a fight as you can, all right? But the church is understanding that not everybody can take on that mantle.
Real quick, I just want to read the comment from Apologist for Jesus. Welcome to the channel, who says, a clarification. We say thou shalt not murder instead of kill, because murder is the proper Septuagint translation, not some conspiracy cover-up, just Greek.
Oh, no, I would agree with that, because soldiers kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we're still allowed to be Christians, right? St. George killed, right? St. Demetrius killed. They were all Roman soldiers, okay, but they still became Christians. So that actually is a good subtle point, that it is thou shalt not murder, okay.
Miggs asks, have you gotten around to seeing The Chosen yet? So
Migs, realistically, right now, Father and I, to a degree, we're very busy with Holy Week and Easter. But once it's over, we'll get to it. In fact, and we've mentioned this even on this show a couple of times that we want to take a look at some film and discuss the an Orthodox perspective on some famous films. And you know what? We'll probably start with yours, but it's on our radar.
And I feel bad because I did go see Nectario, so I did take the time out to see Nectario.
Yeah, but that was a church event.
That was a church event. So
real quick, Tommy has another super chat. Are biblical angels much, quote, scarier, end quote, than art depict? The way they are described with wings and eyes, and not so much human. Also, how many hierarchies of angels are there? I mean, there are some videos out there that depict angels the way that the Bible describes them,
right.
With floating eyes and
right.
I would be terrified if I saw that in general.
Oh yeah, I mean some of these visions that the prophets like Isaiah paint are could be very horrifying. I have not personally witnessed what angels look like, but I do think that it is American, not methodology, but it is American custom to more beautify them, right? Like we take cherubs, right? And cherubs were described as with the many wings and many eyes, but we see them as cute and cuddly, right? So there's an American tradition, Western tradition, that we tend to make everything a little bit more pleasing to the eye.
We try to subdue any idea of the fear of
right,
God. Yeah.
Right. And that's a good way to put it. Is that Orthodoxy always recognizes that there is not only that God is love, but at the same time, he is fearful to be in his presence. And that includes the principalities then that surround him, especially the archangels, because when they came bearing a sword, right? I mean,
I think we should end on these last two questions. And I think both are important. And I have a comment on the first one. I'm reading 2 catechism books and the Divine Ascent. I recently read Saint Theophan, the Recluse, on prayer, and it changed my life. Any other good books on Christian life?
And welcome, Johnny Charles.
And welcome, Johnny.
You had a commentary on that?
I did have a commentary.
Okay, all right.
On that. Is it true that, more of a question, is it true that if you're starting to get into the spiritual life, to not move too fast so that you are not deceived?
Yes. Right. Slow and steady, because again, like an athlete, you have to train up properly, right? You can't just start by lifting, 200 kilos, right? So, so yes, that is a great way to start. The other one that obviously comes to mind is the Filioque. The Filioque is a collection of prayers and meditations. Philokalia. Is a series of meditation and prayers by many of the fathers and monastics of the church. So that's a great read. And it's very it's accessible online. You can download it. I think it's like 99 cents on Kindle or something like that. So that's also a great place to start too.
But definitely slow and steady, and talk with a priest.
Yes.
Make sure that you're not advancing too fast and too far.
Right.
And we have a reading list on our website as well under resources.
Yeah, we do, and I may have to go in and do. Is that categorized by like books on prayer, history?
Well, we talked about adding a lot more books, and ever since we started doing this show, we need to add a lot more.
Yeah.
So
because I keep pulling books off the shelf there.
That's gonna be redesigned. When I have a month to do it.
All right.
And the last question comes from Serafina Didi. What can we tell our Protestant friends about Jesus' second coming? They believe in a rapture, but the angel told the apostles that Jesus will come again the way they saw him ascend to heaven.
So again, the Orthodox Church is not a church of millennialism, the 1,000-year reign. They are not a predestination church, and they are not a rapture church. All right. So we do not necessarily take Paul's words literally. We will all be captured in the air together. We will all lift up and be captured in the air together, right? St. Paul's words. And then again, with Revelation, the Orthodox, there are some that disagree, but generally speaking, the Orthodox believe that Revelation was written about the Roman Empire that already happened. Revelation has already transpired. He was speaking to the people of that time, St. John, all right? So in that sense, when we are speaking to our Protestant brethren, we have to be compassionate that we can see how these beliefs could have been formulated, but equally so, it doesn't mean that this is the way that it's going to happen. Is that there's still some question about what is the exact interpretation of that, whether it's Revelation or talking about who St. Paul is. Okay, so we won't deny them that, but at the same time, there is nothing that is rock solid that says this is how it's going to happen. Because Jesus himself was very clear and says, only the Father knows.
Only the Father knows. Sir.
And Jesus also warned us that, and St. Paul did too, if we get caught up or do not get caught up in these discussions about the end of time, and be watchful, for the thief will, for God will come like a thief in the night, meaning that, it's just going to happen. So or
like the 10 virgins.
Yes, the parable of the 10 virgins. Be watchful, right? And in fact,
you're getting quicker. I like it.
You like? See, yeah, I'm up there. I know where it is. Okay. For 3 days of Holy Week, we're going to be singing this hymn. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And this is the answer that we can give to our brethren, because what Jesus Christ is saying, the bridegroom comes in the dead of the night. Blessed is the servant whom he shall find on watch. Unworthy the one who he comes upon lazy. See to it that sleep does not overtake your soul, lest you be given up to death and shut out of the kingdom. That's right out of the 10 virgins, right? Okay. Sing out and proclaim, holy, holy are you, our God, through the protection of the bodiless powers. So that is our answer. Not to worry about the 1,000 years, not to worry about being caught up in the clouds, not to be worried about predestination, but to be watchful that you are not shut out of the kingdom.
And I do have a question about that, because St. Paul states, with a shout of command and
right.
the trumpets.
Yes.
Isn't that because everyone will hear that?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So isn't that like a last final moment until we are all, ascended up in the air and judged, like the last moment to say, yes, I believe.
Okay, but then again, but Jesus Christ says, be watchful, for you do not know when this will happen. Now at that point, if you do hear that, right, and you are, as the hymn says, and you are lazing about, right, are you going to be attentive to that? Okay, just because you hear the sound of a horn, right, you may rationalize that as something else. End of the world.
It's just a car.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're attentive and you're watchful, right? Yeah, it's just a car horn, right?
I'm just imagining now God coming back with a car horn coming from heaven.
Now...
Well, especially one of the old ones. Doody, doody.
And now I've got a picture of Jesus in the yellow submarine passing by, So,
yeah.
But those who are watchful will recognize that horn for what it is, that sound for what it is.
So to wrap up for tonight, I have 3 items to go over real fast. Number 1, Diane gave us another super chat. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
With a message to Johnny, for as far as what you read. She very plainly suggested read the Divine Liturgy.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
right.
That's simple.
That's simple. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a bit of a question about the stance on Masonry, and there seems to be a perception that you're making an excuse for it. So I just wanted to real quick put a hard end to that.
No, I'm not making an excuse for it. It is a reality. The reality is that Masonry and the Orthodox Church went hand in hand for many, many years in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even, I would say, even into the 50s.
For better or for worse, that started.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It is what it is. Okay. But it is no longer a part of the Orthodox Church. Okay. At least within the priesthood. All the priests that I know are not connected with Masonry in any way. And Masonry and Orthodoxy are not consistent.
Was in the 20s, 30s, and 40s? Was that primarily an American thing, or was that also affected in Europe?
See, that's a good. I can only speak for America because I don't know what I don't know what the Masonry was there, but Masonry certainly started with the founding fathers, right? Okay, so that's why it was so predominant here, but it had to come from somewhere, right? Okay.
Oh, I mean, it goes much farther back. I mean, I can talk about it for a little bit, but we'd be here for another hour.
Right.
Maybe we should do a future video on it, because that's actually one of the topics that's on my list for the next. And I do want to quick.
But hold up, to finish that off, where there might have been seen me being soft on it is what I said was my understanding that I have received from those who are Masons and from my own father and from having seen the Masonic Bible myself. I saw nothing in there that denies the one true God. Now, Masonry does not demand that you believe in Jesus Christ as salvation. That's why it's open to Muslims, Jews, and Christians. All right. So in that sense, it's not Trinitarian, but from everything that I have heard and what I've seen in the Masonic Bible, it says you must believe in the one true God. So it's a true statement as far as I'm concerned, but I don't see that as being soft on Masonry. So,
real quick to wrap up, Johnny Charles, who asked the previous question about the books, wants to thanks us for the welcome. Reference to the website. He states that he's been watching our videos for a year now, but this is the first time they caught the question and answer session live.
Awesome.
I want to welcome you again, Johnny, and also if you're enjoying the videos, look forward to the one coming out on Saturday, which is our fourth Tartan Priest video, where Father goes to St. John the Baptist Church in Michigan. It has one of the most unique narthexes I have seen, but
extremely traditional.
Extremely traditional in a terrifying way if you're not used to it. So make sure that you tune in for that this Saturday. So
okay. I got lost here for a second. Oh, Sam, thank you very much for being on the show. I was thinking about something, that's why. For being on the show again, and again providing some great commentary. You have really become comfortable enough that we just kind of have a dialogue, a very easy dialogue here. Thanks everybody for joining into the show. With each show, I'm getting a bigger pile of books on my desk now. So, but again, thanks to everybody, and we'll see you.
And maybe a blessing for the watchers, for the viewers.
Oh well, okay. Let's see. Let's take out my take out
well,
my
that's
book.
That's no longer yours. That's Ken ATL's.
That's
correct.
So Ken, once again, if you
so you're not getting a new book, you're getting a used one.
Yeah, now you're getting a used one. We're kind of ruining this for you, but make sure to email us so we can get it to you.
Yeah, but it'll have my fingerprints all over it now, right?
So you can clone him. But once again, if we didn't get to your question tonight, please resubmit next week. The show's becoming more popular. God bless. But it's getting harder and harder for us to answer all the questions, but keep them coming.
All right. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, to the Holy Spirit, now and forever, and to the ages of ages. Amen. Let us pray to the Lord, O Master, Lord, and Jesus Christ, who did walk upon the waters as dry land, and did deign to have his holy disciples and apostles as fellow voyagers on the ship, who rebuked the stormy wind and commanded the waves to be still. be pleased with us now also, and be with us as we travel on this journey with these your servants who listen to this show, so that they may have a successful voyage, timely winds, and avail themselves of Christ our God, who is our true pilot and who will save, and that he grants all of them a safe journey and also illumination. For your name is holy, now and forever, into the ages of ages. Amen.
And just to note, I know you can't clone from fingerprints, but I couldn't make a hair joke. I'd feel bad for the man. So.
That's right. That's right. There's nothing's gonna come from here.
All right. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.